Welcome to the Boston Celtics podcast here on the Athletic Podcast Network. I'm your host, Sam Jam Packard, professional sports fan, and I am joined, as always, by the kid, the god, the legend himself, Celtics beat reporter from theathletic.com to talk to you about the Boston Celtics, who are down 0-2 to the Brooklyn Nets in their first round
round
series.
2-0.
Sure, I was trying to.
This isn't tennis. Tennis is the only place where you put the losing value first.
Okay, so no, when I play pickup, I always have the team who has the ball as the first value. So if I'm playing pickup and my team has the ball and we're down 0-2, that's the frame in the reference to me.
Hoops isn't. That's how I know you're not a hooper.
I'm hooping today. When's the last time you hooped?
March 9th, 2020.
5 o'clock, Hoyt Field, Cambridge. Be there if you want to hoop.
Maybe I will.
Maybe you will. But we're talking about the Celtics, who have lost their first two games to the Brooklyn Nets. They have game 3 coming up on Friday night. And we're going to talk about that a little bit before getting to your mailbag questions. Kyrie coming back, I think, is the biggest news in this game because the series doesn't really feel like it's going to be competitive. So we got to go with the hoopla. You know, Kyrie hates hoopla.
The hoopla. I like you calling back that word. I haven't heard hoopla in a while.
Well, last time I heard it was Kyrie Irving talking about the hoopla around a game. He kind of went out of his way to create some hoopla with his recent comments. I guess what's your perspective or what do you expect to happen Friday night in the Garden?
There will be a lot of hostility in TD Garden on Friday night. It will be as an electric an environment as we've seen there in a long, long time. First of all, the playoffs are returning. There will be more fans, I believe, than the Celtics have had at any game this season. Fans have been waiting to let Kyrie know how they feel about him for almost 2 years. Almost 2 years. When Brooklyn played in Boston last year, fans were ruthless the entire time. That whole game chanting about Kyrie.
There were Kyrie sucks chants.
Where is Kyrie? Fuck you, Kyrie. All that. And he wasn't even in the building. They were so mean that night, so relentless that night that Kyrie addressed it on Instagram and sounded, impacted by what had happened in Boston. So it has been a long time, and fans do not like Kyrie Irving at all. He's probably the most hated Celtic of my lifetime. I would say,
former Celtic. Like, I don't think of anyone else who has scorned the franchise or LeBron James used to get booed, but that was like mostly out of begrudging respect and just like
Ray Allen before him was probably the most.
I should have come up with that. That one's pretty obvious and only like a decade ago.
But Ray Allen, when he was on the Celtics, at least fans still loved him. Like, fans turned against Kyrie while he was still in Boston because of how disruptive he was to that team, that locker room, because he no-showed against Milwaukee, because he constantly criticized the young players on his team.
Because he made a commercial saying that he was going to stay in Boston and his number 11 was going to be retired, because he unprompted promised he would re-sign for no reason at all, creating a hoopla. The guy's a hoopla king. The guy loves nothing but hoopla.
So what do you think will happen? Like, obviously the crowd will have an impact on game 3. I think there are like a number of possibilities for that to go, a number of ways it could go. Kyrie could have 60. Like, he could feed on it. He could be ready for it. He could come out and drop 60 on the Celtics. That would not shock me. He could try to force everything and be horrible, and the crowd could fire up the Celtics, give them the energy, the enthusiasm that they need to kind of slow down the Nets. I think best case scenario for Boston obviously would be that he forces things and tries to have a great game and is in his head about trying to be too good in front of those fans. And then the other part of it, I think it's possible that the Nets, like, beyond Kyrie, see this as such a big game for him and play harder for him. Like it's possible Kevin Durant, James Harden, Blake Griffin, Joe Harris, all those guys recognize that the buildup for this game for Kyrie has been incredible, It's been 2 years in the making, and this is going to be an emotional night for him one way or the other, no matter how he downplays it, how he downplays, he's been an opponent there before, yada, yada, yada. There is going to be a lot of emotions, and I think it's possible that the rest of the Nets just say, you know what, we're going to win this one for Kyrie, no matter what happens with him. Like, we need to get this one.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how they approach it, because if they want to approach it with just like, we need to win this one, like forcing the ball to Kyrie Irving or like trying to get Kyrie going is not necessarily their best strategy. Not a bad strategy to have if like you're trying to get Kyrie open and you have James Harden and Kevin Durant to do so. But I'm curious to see if the Nets are like, okay, Kyrie, like get out of the way. Let's have you drop 20 in the first quarter or something. Or it's like they really try to go to him to kind of like just like play into it. I don't know if that will happen. It feels like they certainly would want to be like Kevin Durant and like his teammates would like feel like they want to vindicate the decision of him leaving Boston to go to the Brooklyn Nets. Like clearly it was the right choice. But yeah, I'm expecting absolute. I wouldn't be surprised if Kyrie just dominated and it was just silky smooth, and people just got angrier and angrier as the team lost. Because that's another thing. Feels like there's such bad vibes around the team where people are just furious that if the team continues to lose, I can see it getting ugly real quickly. And maybe it turns from Kyrie Irving vitriol to Celtics vitriol.
Ooh, the plot twist there.
They were getting a lot of boos when they were losing all those games down the season. I would not be surprised if the boo birds came out again. Like if they just fall down 20, which is certainly possible, and Kyrie's the villain to do it, like Kyrie just goes off, people will be upset.
People will be upset. It's going to be a lot of energy in that building. It is going to be out of control. I'm looking forward to all of it. And it gives another layer to a series that has been lopsided through 2 games. To me, the Nets, they're at their best when they don't force anything. Like they're at their best when Durant, Harden, Kyrie are willing to make the extra pass and to find Joe Harris when he's open or to find each other when they're open. They can obviously all make very difficult shots, but the Celtics, like the whole Celtics game plan is to try to take away the supporting cast and force those 3 stars to earn their buckets, basically. Like if they're gonna shoot your face off with long contested shots, the Celtics are cool with that. They'll tip their cap. What they want to do is take away the supporting cast and force those other guys into tough shots. If Kyrie deviates from throwing the extra pass and playing team basketball because he's trying to prove a point to Boston, then that would probably be a plus for the Celtics. But who knows how it'll go? I just know it's going to be crazy in TD Garden.
It's just like, how do you stop them though? Like, how do you not let the other guys score? So you don't play help defense, and then you just go in one-on-one against Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant, and then they run some simple picks, and then you switch, and then you know what? You have Kevin Durant on Kemba Walker. You feel like you need to send help that way, and then the Nets are like playing in rotation, and that's when they're playing their best basketball. It's just going to be interesting to see if they can make any sort of a run. In order to do so, they're going to need to like continually score and jack up the pace. Like they need to find a way to get more possessions than the Nets if they want to pull out a game, which is going to be difficult if the offense looks as bad as it has. And that gets us to our first mailbag question from Alex Oratis. Why is the Celtics offense so isolation heavy? Notice he put the C in offense, so he is from Great Britain or Canada.
I like that. We're international, bro. I think part of it is the Nets defense. When you switch everything, then you force teams into isolation. And so the idea of switching is to take away a lot of the separation that you get if you don't switch. And so that limits ball movement. It forces guys to make a play one-on-one. And the Celtics, like, they haven't been a great cutting team all season. That has frustrated Brad Stevens from the start. It is something he harped on, in the middle of the season, tried to get them to have more player movement, be sharper with their cuts, move harder off the basketball. And I think that's important against a switching defense. Like, you got to slip hard. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to occupy the help defense so that you can't be sitting there. The Nets can't be sitting there stationary, ready to help. And the Celtics haven't done a good job of that. That's been the biggest surprise to me in this series is that they haven't been able to score. I thought they'd be able to score on this Nets defense, but Brooklyn has taken it up another notch defensively. I think Kevin Durant has been great defensively.
He's been amazing on defense, and they're just like defensive intensity has been there in both two games, or just their physicality. And that's tough with a team that switches a bunch if like they have to be physical. And you're right, it kind of forces that one-on-one action. Like the other reason they're so isolation heavy is because like that is their personnel. They have Jason Tatum right now, who's their main scorer, and they have Kemba Walker, whose main kind of attribute is attacking guys off the dribble. And then you really don't want to give the ball to many other guys. They're not getting a lot of offense from other players. And so I think it's a combination of that's why the Nets are kind of forcing them in doing a bunch of switching, is because that's the best way to counter that. I don't know if there's a real answer to it. I think you would be better if Jaylen Brown was on the court. I think it would be better if Tristan Thompson was not on the court. But, I don't know. It's kind of just what's happening with the Celtics right now. It's like, who else are you going to rely on but Jason Tatum?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why the Celtics need to do a lot to upgrade their supporting cast. Like they need to get veterans who know how to play basketball and won't get stuck in an isolation heavy offense or will be able to, lift the Celtics out of that. I don't think the Celtics have enough good passers surrounding Tatum and Walker and Jaylen Brown when he's healthy. Like Marcus Smart, he can pass. Evan Fournier can pass a little bit. But beyond those guys, like Tristan Thompson, not a passer. Robert Williams can pass. But like, how many plus passers do they have? How many guys with very high basketball IQs do they have? It's just not there. And so that's I think one of the weaknesses they have to address over the offseason is they need more passers, they need more cutters, they need more veterans who know how to play. Well,
that leads us perfectly into our next question from Boston Opinions. Of those young guys, if you're the GM, there's a lot of them. Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith, Romeo Langford, Grant Williams, Carson Edwards, Tremont Waters, Luke Cornett, and Taco Fall. Who's on the roster next year? Because you talked about the need for passing, you talked about the need for veteran presences. Like that's a lot of their roster right now, and it's taken up by a lot of guys with not that much experience. And I feel like to surround Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown right now and be successful moving forward, you need guys who like know what they're doing and like just are easily just can be put into the starting lineup or on the court next to those guys. And there's like not this time for learning moments. I think there's a lot of potential in some of those guys, but you can't keep 8 of them. I just don't see how that's like possible moving forward.
Yeah, they need to, like this year, they just had 5 guys who are borderline NBA players. And you look at Brooklyn and it's like everybody on their roster for the most part can come in and play minutes. And so many guys on their team have played a lot of years in the NBA, have a lot of experience, and know how to be role players and aren't looking to establish themselves in the NBA because they're fully established. And I think that matters. It matters a lot. And I think that's been one of the biggest reasons for the Celtics' disappointing season is that they play a lot of guys who don't deserve a lot of minutes. I mean, game 1, game 2 of the playoff series, they turned to Jabari Parker for offense. He didn't even have a team for a month during the season. And he has never been a helpful player basically anywhere. So that's where they're going to in the playoffs against a team with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. And so they need to do a lot to upgrade the rotation of those young guys. Like I think Nesmith looks like he's going to be a player. I think Peyton Pritchard looks like he's going to be a rotation player at the very least. And then you've got
someone that just is being mean in the comments.
You've got someone just called Jam the Carson Edwards of podcasting
because of my sweet meaty thighs and my great shooting ability.
Yeah, I don't think there's nothing wrong with being Carson Edwards. But yeah, I think beyond those 2 guys, like Robert Williams is obviously a keeper too. but he's got to learn how to stay healthy. Beyond those guys, like, you've got to decide who do you trust moving forward. And the Celtics know a lot more about Romeo Langford than I do. I think Grant Williams could become a helpful player at some point, but his second year was just not good, not promising. And for a team that needs more shooting, needs more experience, I don't know where he fits in. So they need to get better in their supporting cast. And I think that one of the good things about this season has been that they found a couple of young guys, a few young guys who should be able to help for a while. But a number of other young guys either took a step back or failed to develop. So they've got to trim the young guys on this roster. I think they need to get more veteran experience in here over the offseason.
That brings us to next question. Wiggy15. Should the Celtics embrace a semi-rebuild and trade all their big contracts?
An Ojale rebuild?
Ooh, no. They probably Semi's the one guy who's probably going to end up being cut, but he has a younger and just build around Tatum, Brown, Time Lord, Nesmith, and Pritchard. I think there's a separate conversation we can get to about trading the big contracts. There's one point I wanted to mention about all the young guys we mentioned. They're all on their rookie deals, and so it's not like letting one of them go necessarily builds all this cap space for them to suddenly go out and get impact veteran player. Like they're kind of stuck with a lot of those guys just in terms of, like, you pay guys on their rookie contracts. It's not like, I guess if you let a couple of them go, you can piece together some sort of deal, but they already gave like their mid-level exception all to Tristan Thompson. And so I don't know, like, sure, you have 8 guys and you probably want to like consolidate that down to 4, but I don't know if you're going to generate another guy out of that cap space. And so I think cap space is going to be a big issue for the Celtics moving forward. Thus the question about the semi-Ojale rebuild, where is suggesting trading Kemba Walker, and I guess Marcus Smart is included in there as big contract guys in the near future, and just kind of like rebuilding, I guess, around Tatum and Brown.
Yeah, I think those are conversations the Celtics front office is going to have. Because obviously this team wasn't good enough. Obviously, Kemba Walker, there are serious questions about his health moving forward, serious questions about how he fits with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in the timeline there. And obviously he has a huge contract, so he doesn't have much value, if any.
That's the thing, is I don't think many teams are lining up to try and trade for Kemba Walker contract. Is like, then do you attach picks to just get off that contract? Like, he's still a valuable player. It's the contract that's like the worst thing. But I think that's something to think about, just because I don't know if his fit is perfect around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, especially if you're going to be putting the ball in Tatum's hands more. Like, Kemba's not a great off-ball player. Like, he's not a guy who really spots up and hits a lot of threes. He's not a guy who does like running around screens and is like Duncan Robinson type or Tyler Hero type. He's primarily a guy who needs the ball in his hands, and I just don't know if that like necessarily fits when you want the ball in Jason Tatum's hands more often. You want the ball in Jaylen Brown's hands. Like, there are point guards out there who could like kind of, you would see as a better fit than Kemba. The question is like, what are you going to do you basically have to give up value just to get off the contract and then be unsure of what you're actually getting back for him.
Yeah. And it goes back to like some of the missteps the organization probably had. Like,
at the time, do you think Kemba signing was bad?
So
they got to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's the thing. Is like, you had to give them 4 years to get that year, but like they got that year going to the Eastern Conference Finals with him.
Yeah, but if you weren't going to pay up to keep Gordon Hayward, if you weren't going to offer him the same amount of money another place was going to offer him, then keeping Kemba and not keeping Hayward, like, that's an obvious setback, like they weren't going to be good enough this year after Hayward left, especially when they replaced him with Tristan Thompson and Jeff Teague. And that's just the truth. Like, this team was not as talented as it was a year ago. The rest of the Eastern Conference improved, especially Brooklyn, which is just super loaded now. And I mean, even beyond, the Kemba signing, which like it could have gone better, but I feel like if you commit to signing Kemba, like you have to do more to keep Gordon Hayward, and you have to do more to maximize that little window that you had versus basically punting it because another team offered Gordon Hayward more money. And then, this series against Kyrie is just a reminder of what the Celtics wanted to do, which is they wanted to pair Kyrie with another superstar, and they wanted to keep Al Horford, and they wanted to go out and get Anthony Davis, and they had all these big dreams. Like, who knows? Could they have lured Kevin Durant? Because obviously Kyrie wanted to play with his close friend. Like, Celtics would have had to do serious moves to free up cap space for Kevin Durant. But, like, what could have been possible if they kept Kyrie happy? Obviously, they didn't do that. Obviously, it was a disaster. He left. Horford left. Hayward left a year later. There's just been a mass exodus of talent. And, like things have just the last couple years have not gone well. And you wonder, like what is the path to replenish the talent and give Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown a chance to compete, or the best chance to compete, because those two guys, like, they're great finds. They're really freaking good.
I think the Celtics just were trying to get too greedy by basically, like, they did the rebuild with the Nets pick, but then they tried to, like, while waiting for that window of players to get to, like, championship level, they tried to have their cake and eat it too and do the Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford thing, and, like, tried to basically have the natural redevelopment of these young players that were the Brooklyn picks and be competitive at the same time. And it just feels like they not much broke right with for that. Whether it's, I mean, that Kyrie season just feel like it pissed off a lot of people. It pissed off Terry Rozier. I don't know, like, if they re-sign Terry Rozier instead of Kemba Walker right now, you probably are feeling better about the team moving forward, just because he's a 3-point shooter, a better defender, and, like, would probably be much cheaper. And so I feel like they're kind of greedy and going for that Kemba deal where, like, we were pretty good last year. Let's just get another star point guard in. When you're right, that money, that would be, like, much easier to have paid Gordon Hayward last offseason if they didn't have all that money on the books for Kemba. And it kind of feels like they definitely chose, I guess, Kemba at that point over Hayward. Although I think they assumed the whole time that Hayward wanted to come back. Or I don't know. Towards the end there, I feel like Hayward felt like he was boxed out and wanted to be a star. So it's difficult to figure out. The Kemba question, I just don't think anyone's going to trade for him. The real question of the offseason is, can we trick anyone into taking Tristan Thompson contract?
The Tristan Thompson, that's another thing. Like, they signed Thompson. It forced them to get rid of Tice, who probably better than Thompson. And now, they're looking at the second straight offseason where they have a backup center. I guess Thompson's starting, but if Robert Williams were healthy, he'd be the starter. They have a backup center making enough money that it's a hindrance to the cap. Last year, they had to move a draft pick to get rid of Enes Kanter. And now that, they might have to do the same thing with Thompson to save money. And so it hasn't been a great stretch for Danny Ainge after he made, like, 5 years of great moves in a row. Just taking that next step from having all those assets to becoming a real contender. I think there have been some missteps along the way. Obviously.
Talk about talent leaving the door, as our friend Manuel Margarito reminds us. A bench player he'd like to have back, PJ Dozier, former Maine Red Claw. PJ Dozier's a nice little player. The Nuggets would need him right now. But yeah, they've lost a lot of talent. They tried a bunch of swings and they missed. And now it's just about, like, figuring out, okay, what do you do to kind of best put guys around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown moving forward. We got a question about that from, let me find it. It was definitely about the draft from Ben Anderson. They have the 16th pick this year. If you're Danny, what are you targeting, or what are you trading the pick? So, like, is another draft pick going to be helpful for this situation, especially a draft pick from the 16th like middle of the draft?
It could be. I mean,
we have no idea.
It could be. Yeah, I think. I mean, in a perfect world, they would get more shooting, more playmaking, more wing size. But at 16, like crapshoot, just a crapshoot. So yeah, I don't think. Obviously, people will get excited about the 16th pick, whoever they get. But I think the bigger thing for this offseason is providing some sort of supporting cast that can make things easier for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I think the Celtics need to get more badasses. Like they need to be badasses. They don't have that spirit that they used to.
I feel like it also comes from having a lot of young guys, and like it's hard to be a badass when you're early on in the league. Like some players have it or just naturally that way, but like I feel like that is something more of a veteran thing to do than like guy who was drafted at 22.
Yeah, and I think the Celtics could have made things easier on themselves by kind of putting out the message that this was going to be a bit of a bridge year. You know, like I think the messaging from the organization was we expect to contend this year, and the roster was not ready to contend if they had stayed perfectly healthy, never mind with all the COVID issues and the injury issues and all of that. So
it's the downfall of the growth mindset. You can't put that out there because then you're not going to accomplish it. So you have to believe that it's a championship team, but it does kind of create this expectations. It's weird how much expectations affects like fan mood. Because I remember like when Kyrie left, Horford left, it was like there's like this is not a championship team. Let's just have fun while it's happening. And then they kind of surprised with the Eastern Conference run. Daniel Tice was amazing, and it created all these expectations this year. And now people are just upset because of those expectations. But like, yeah, do you blame the team for not like coming out and being like? It's just a weird thing for the team to say publicly. Just be like, yeah, we're going to be a mid-tier team in the East. Like that's just not something I imagine Danny Ainge or Brad Stevens saying.
I guess, but I feel like the expectations for this group were just too high.
But isn't that your fault as a member of the media?
Yeah, I underrated how much Gordon Hayward's absence would matter. I underrated how much it would matter that Kemba missed some time and didn't play on back-to-backs.
I like how I can blame you when you're a member of the media and I act like I don't have a podcast.
Like and I overrated how much of an impact Tristan Thompson and Jeff Teague would have. So, yeah, I should have known that this was coming, and I didn't.
Hand up. It's on both of us.
Hand up.
Fucked it up.
I'm a fucking moron.
Amen, brother. Yeah, no, it's just like we should have seen losing a star like Gordon Hayward and not replacing him with anything. Their margin of error would shrink. The question from Bertelio, look, I can read. Do you think that the notion that Boston demands excellence is that a net positive or negative for Celtics players? Like when they really had no business competing for a title this year, the expectations were so high, and you're just constantly hearing about, oh, this team has no heart. Jason Tatum's leadership's being called into question, things like that, where it feels like it's a very negative attitude just because of that demand for excellence. Do you think that makes it a place where, I don't know, people like Kyrie Irving or Al Horford or Gordon Hayward don't want to play?
If you're afraid of that, then
it's not afraid. It's just like, wow, like would rather not go through with that. It seems kind of
Here's
shitty.
The thing. If you're a good team, if you're a team that plays hard, if you're a team that plays together, if you're a player who does all of those things, then Boston will fall in love with you. And Boston will be a great place to play. And Boston will shower you with praise and love you forever. Look at Isaiah Thomas. That guy will be beloved in Boston for the rest of his life because of how much he accomplished and the way he accomplished it during a short time in Boston. If you're afraid of reaching that standard, if you can't reach that standard, then you're not going to have success anywhere. And so I think
I know. Well, you just said that like the standard for them this year shouldn't have been that high. Like we shouldn't have expected them to be good, and yet they're getting just so much shit for like. Did they meet the standard? They like played as pretty much to what their talent level was, given how young their team was and all the injuries and things like that.
I just think as long as you play together and play hard, Boston will appreciate you. And that's it. Like Brad Stevens said, he told the Celtics after one game, he's never been booed in TD Garden where they were wrong.
Fair point.
And that's sort of how it is. Like, so I'm not.
What would be a moment where they would get wrong boos, booing the home team? I can't think of a scenario where the boos would be like, oh, Brad would be like, oh, the crowd is full of it.
Damn it. Don't you know we have Draymond out there?
Early on when they're chanting, we want taco, and it was still a close game.
Don't you know we started Carson Edwards tonight? We do not deserve these boos.
We're trying our best. We executed on every play. Shots did not fall.
Yeah. So I do think there has been some overreaction to the season. I do think that the Celtics haven't deserved all of the scoring. And I do think, especially for the best players on the team, like there's sometimes a lot of criticism, but that's just part of it, man. Like you have to learn how to deal with that. You have to learn how to get through that and still play good basketball. And if you do, like if you play good basketball, Boston will love you. That's just how it is.
And they've been pretty damn good. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have won a first-round series every year. Like, this is the first year they will not win a first-round series. But that's like a pretty good run. That means they're in the top 8 of the league for the past 4 years. That's pretty good. Not everyone's going to win a championship every year. Like, the Patriots are insane. Like, the Red Sox winning this much is kind of wacky. They've been one of the better franchises for the past 5 years, and they take like one step down, and everyone is furious. And so maybe it's just a cyclical thing.
But part of the reason why that's so frustrating for the Celtics fan base is that they were lined up for more than this. You know, they were lined up with Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, Marcus Morris, Aaron Baines. They had so many dudes and so much talent. And so that's why to go from that to now Jabari Parker is playing 20 minutes in a playoff series.
So they should be booing Danny Ainge and writing columns about Danny Ainge, not writing columns about Jason Tatum's leadership or these like players not having heart. It's like Danny Ainge is the one who sent all those people out the door or like didn't re-sign them. But Danny Ainge doesn't get booed, or there's no scathing columns about like his character like there are like probably on sports talk radio right now or Dan Shaughnessy columns.
You're big mad.
I'm just trying to defend the players here. Like we're talking about it's like all things the GM did to mess up. Like I'm sorry, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as rookies didn't do more to create a nurturing environment for those players. Like I don't know, it feels like that's a square on Danny Ainge's shoulders. Just saying. I'm just going to defend the guys who I feel like they've been trying this year. That's all I'm trying to say.
I respect it.
The Polish poster checks in. Lego Man, talk to me about the dominance of John Cal Jones in the Connecticut Sun. Also, the Maine Celtics, but Crustacean Nation stays. Your thoughts. So first, we'll talk about John Cal Jones scoring 20 points this year, up 6 points from last year with the Connecticut Sun. I don't follow the WNBA at all. I was just trying to act like it. I thought you would have a reaction, but you had nothing at all. But shouts to the Connecticut Sun. It's weird that the Celtics, like Boston, doesn't have a WNBA franchise, but I guess you wanted the people go down to Mohegan Sun, gamble a few, and watch the WNBA. So, shouts to them. Congratulations on having a dominant season.
Shouts to the Sun.
What was your reaction to the Red Claws becoming the Maine Celtics, but they still had a lobster in their logo?
My first reaction was that Chris Mannix, all the gear that he purchased when he went to a Red Claws game is worthless now. Either that or it's vintage.
How much gear did he buy? How much gear are we talking about?
He got some nice Red Claws gear, some pullovers and stuff like that. I respected the purchases by Mannix. But yeah, now that's outdated gear. he spent a lot of money on that gear, and big Red Claws guy, and it's just outdated now. I don't really care that they're called the Maine Celtics. This is the last thing on earth I would ever care about, a switching of a G League team's name. So I'm not too concerned about it, but Crustacean Nation.
What do you think about that logo, the green Celtics lobster? I think it looks tough. I mean, it's a good looking rock. Like, I think the Maine Celtics will eventually move to Boston. I don't think it makes sense to have a G League team far away from you. It's just everything seems to run better. Everyone's in the same system. If everyone was practicing in the facility in Boston. So I think this is just the first step. The Celtics had to first buy the team. Now there's Celtics to find it. Soon that lobster is going to be done. Soon we're not going to have any lobster, and it'll just be it'll be like Celtics Light. So maybe they build a small stadium. You can go to Maine or Celtics games or Maine Celtics. I'm confused about the G League now, but it hasn't been there for an entire year. So we'll see what happens when it comes back. This is a question, Jay, that I just don't know what you're going to answer to. If you could change the Celtics logo to anything, what would it be?
Obviously, silhouette of Evan Turner, like the NBA logo, but with Evan Turner. That's the most obvious thing ever. There is no other answer. I think Evan Turner used to wear T-shirts of like a fake NBA logo with him on it. So that should be the Celtics logo. If they switch to that logo, I see the franchise's trajectory going straight up.
Just switching to Evan Turner. Well, Evan Turner came on the coaching staff this year, and I don't think it was that helpful.
That's because he hasn't been allowed to talk to the media. Once he can talk to the media on a daily basis, boom.
When media is allowed back, he's just going to hold court like in the locker room before games because everyone's just going to want to talk. That's what I used to do for Evan Turner media availability. I would just walk myself right and play myself next to his locker because that was going to be the most interesting thing that happened in pregame. And so I'm looking forward to it. I would change. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't have a better answer than that. Evan Turner in the Celtics jersey, it works out. That's going to about do it for all the Celtics questions. We're going to finish on this from Greg Casoli. He's been trying to think of a potable six-pack of our best bits. He says that number one is me making fun of No Talent Franklin, the 76ers mascot. And number 6 is Jay trying to get people to call him a hero.
I don't have to force people to call me a hero. They just call me a hero.
Who has called you a hero? I start every episode by calling you the kid, the god, and the legend. And you think if anyone would call you a hero, it'd be me, but I'm not.
I once saved a life.
Go on. Whose life?
I was a lifeguard at
oh my god, he must have been terrible.
At a local pool. I was a great lifeguard. Used to put on the sunglasses, close my eyes, take a little nap on the lifeguard chair. Really diligent.
I was a great lifeguard. I used to fall asleep at the job.
But one time, two mothers were in the baby pool with their kids, and they were just chatting up, having a great time. I wasn't even supposed to watch
the baby.
I wasn't even supposed to watch the baby pool. There was no lifeguard in the baby pool, but I was alert. I was diligent. I looked over. A kid fell flat on his face in the baby pool. It's like regular baby pool, super shallow water. But this little motherfucker fell flat on his face. The two mothers didn't even notice. They were just yapping it up, having a great time. The kid hustled over, picked up the baby, saved the life.
How old are we talking here?
There is a human being out there who would not be alive were it not for the heroics of the kid.
Did it get written up in the local paper?
No, I didn't want any headlines. I didn't want any praise. I wasn't in it for the accolades. I was in it for
the life saving.
The easiest paycheck ever. But I was also in it to save a human being's life. And there's someone out there in this world. I don't know that kid's name. I don't know what that kid has grown up to do, but I do know I was a hero that day.
I'm still not going to call you a hero because you are asking for it, but I think that is a pretty good bit. Anything else? I like just talking about vertical spacing. I don't think that's a bit, but I love bringing it up.
Positional defense back in the Kelly Olynyk days was way up there.
The team having rhythmitism, I thought was a good one going for a while.
Back in the old days, quality audio quality.
That's a good one.
Kemba
Walker shooting from distance. That's a great bit.
Always great when you bring that one up. What else? What else do we have? Little stupid running jokes. I don't know.
I can't remember.
Yeah, we'll the listener guys should let us know what their favorite stupid bits are.
It's probably just like I feel like the whole kind of podcast is a stupid bit. Like the idea that we do this twice a week is kind of a stupid bit that everyone joins on for and enjoys. And so we appreciate everyone who listens. Podcast will be live again after Game 3, after whatever electric environment that is. So if you enjoy this live stream, please subscribe to our YouTubes. Please rate the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. And Jay, are the main Celtics potable?
No.
Anything is potable!